The question you've all been waiting me to answer. Who is a better matchup for the Clippers? Or should I say, which matchup is less problematic? The New Orleans Pelicans or the Dallas Mavericks in the first round? Is there a possibility that we could play another team? Going to be previewing the game against the Kings and comparing the matchups on today's Locked On Home Stretch Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in the greatest city in the world of LA, and in my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more extensive LA sports and NBA content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And I want you to let me know who you'd rather play, the Pelicans or the Mavs, and why. And before we get into that and previewing the Sacramento Kings game on Wednesday night, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to find great deals on last-minute tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so in this episode, we're going to be comparing both teams and our matchups, what those matchups could look like in the postseason, Pelicans, Mavs. Then in the end, I'm going to be giving my verdict and deciding, or looking at the game against Sacramento as well, and then talking about if we could play any other teams. But first, let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. For the last couple of weeks, it's been kind of a prediction that the New Orleans Pelicans are going to finish in the 5 seed, and we are going to finish in the 4 seed. Now, we are not going to move up past 4. This is where we are going to be. Either 4 or lower. I think 4 to 6 because we are 4 games in the loss column behind the Wolves for 3, and we're 4 games ahead of the Suns in 7th. So it looks like we will be making the playoffs outright for the second straight year, which is great. Obviously, that's one of the main goals. Of course, everybody wants to get their respective seeds that they shoot for in the regular season, but the main goal is getting the top 6 now. It's not getting the top 8. Getting the top 6 now. And it looks like we're going to do that, which is great. Of course, coming off our worst stretch of the season, and I really do believe this recent stretch was worse than the 5 straight or 6 straight losses when we first got Harden, because that was when you first get a new player, you're testing things out, you have a starting lineup that had too many cooks in the kitchen and wasn't working. But this was after you had gone on a run, you have gotten the number 1 seed, and now you're just falling off a cliff. The same players are just falling off a cliff. So it was weird. I thought it was our worst stretch of the season, but we are on a 3-game winning streak as of this episode. Now, here's my thing, right? Before we talk about the New Orleans Pelicans, as I said, it feels like we're not going up to 3. So I did say all season long, if you want a championship, you got to be a top 3 seed. Only 2 seeds have ever won the championship below 3. And I'm going to stick with my conviction. I don't think we're going to win the championship. But 4 seeds still go to the finals. 4 seeds can still go to the conference finals. So I still think we have a chance to make a run. I really do, and that's always amazing. And as a franchise who's only made it to 1 conference finals, I think it would be amazing. It would still be a great achievement. But let's not distract ourselves from why we put this team together initially and added James Harden. It's championship or bust. Nothing other than a championship will suffice. I think fans will be able to walk away saying it was a fun season if we make it to the conference finals and say, you know what? There's optimism. Let's run it back. But it depends on how we lose. I just don't know if we lose to a team like Denver, who's younger than us, how we respond to that. But speaking of younger than us, the New Orleans Pelicans. So, as I said, the Clippers, we are 2 games in the loss column ahead of the 5th seeded. Right now, it's the Mavericks, 6th seed New Orleans. So, because Brandon Ingram's been out, and he continues to be out, the Pelicans have dropped a bit. They're 3-3 without Ingram in the recent stretch. and they're 7-4 without him overall this season. But the New Orleans Pelicans, let's just start with the absolute obvious, right? 38-25 with Brandon Ingram, but the absolute obvious is in the regular season, they might be our worst matchup in the league. Like their size and athleticism is overwhelming for us. We've never properly had an answer for Zion and Brandon Ingram. I mean, when we didn't have Kawhi, Brandon Ingram used to light us up. Even when we have had Kawhi, he's lit us up. Like, look no further than that game, which was almost a year ago today, when the Kawhi and Brandon Ingram were just going at it in New Orleans, and Ingram was just showing, why he's such a star now. Obviously, neither of Zion nor BI made the All-Star team this year because they weren't averaging 23 points or more. And the Pelicans were kind of hovering around that 7-8 spot. Then after the All-Star break, they really started picking it up. But the main thing with New Orleans this year is that Zion has played more games than he's ever played in his career. And Brandon Ingram has been healthy as well until this. So it's been a year where, much like the Clippers, the New Orleans Pelicans had a ton of questions coming into the year about injuries. And they have been healthy, and they're showing how dangerous they could be. They're 12th in offensive rating, so top half of the league, but not top 10. But they're 4th in defensive rating and 3rd in steals. Now, mind you, going into the season, they had 2 guys in their starting lineup, 3 really, that were considered below average defenders. Jonas Valanciunas, Zion, and CJ McCollum. And this year, surrounded by Brandon Ingram and obviously one of the best defenders in the NBA today, Herb Jones. And then when you bring in Nance, Alvarado, Murphy, and Marshall off the bench, those guys can all defend. And they all have size and length. So in terms of the starting lineup, I think what's really improved in my eyes whenever I've watched them play is Zion. His ability to stay in front now has really improved. Looks like he's shed some weight since that in-season tournament. And since that in-season tournament, that's really when the Pelicans seem to have a wake-up call. Mainly Zion, who, as I mentioned earlier, is playing a career high in games, and he has a career high in assists per game because they're using him a lot more as a point forward kind of deal. So the Pelicans beat us 3-1 in the season series. Both games in LA, they beat us. I was at both. You can find the vlog of both of those games on my channel. And then we recently lost them in New Orleans in a very competitive game. And then we had one of our best wins of the season when we absolutely destroyed them when we were rolling. Here's my concern with the Pels. Especially after the trade for Harden, we have no front court depth for Zion. I was already saying that because I was advocating for Kawhi to play the 4 even before we got Harden. I was saying that we don't play against that many bruiser bigs in the NBA today, forwards, but Zion is one of those guys. And the thing about Zion is he doesn't let the defense off the hook. He's constantly going to go to the rim. The thing about Zion is he doesn't really have a mid-range yet, and he doesn't have a consistent post game. He's amazing at attacking your chest, going right into your body, but he still has a game that we haven't seen in the NBA playoffs. This guy has never played a playoff game. So the thing with the Pelicans that we clearly have is experience and the best player in the series. Now, here's what worries me. The Pelicans are a good defensive team. They have more guys that are equipped to throw at 2-1-3 and Harden than we have for Zion. While we have Paul George and Kawhi to throw at Ingram, and Terrence Mann cannot guard Ingram. He shoots right over the top of him. But Kawhi and Paul are decent to guard Ingram. Amir Coffey probably as well. But Zion, we don't have much for him. Now, there has been Zubats guarding Zion for stretches. And statistically, I saw somebody post this, but statistically, Zoo holds Zion to a low field goal percentage when he's guarding him. But eye test wise, it looks like Zion can get the step on Zoo. And it often feels like we overcompensate. And one thing you start seeing is like when we'll put a bigger wing on Zion and have Zoo as a roamer to help at the rim, they'll just put Zoo in the action, and it feels like Zoo's getting attacked downhill against Zion. And one thing you saw last time we played them is the second we took Zoo out of the game, Plumlee got absolutely crushed with them trying to seek him in the pick and roll. And mind you, they're setting the screen at like the free throw line. So he's getting downhill, taking 2 steps. He's already gliding to the basket. So the main concern with the Pelicans is that we have nothing for Zion while they have Herb Jones, Najee Marshall, and Trey Murphy and Brandon Ingram to throw at our best players, and Alvarado for Harden. So they have, like, on the court, The Pelicans matchup doesn't seem good. They're fast and athletic for us, but here's the saving grace. In the playoffs, the game slows down. We have the best player in the series. Even though they have better guys to guard our best player, if Kawhi doesn't outplay Zion and Brandon Ingram in a series, I don't care who's guarding him. Like, the thing about Kawhi is when we got him, there was no, oh, this guy can guard him well. Like, no, there was nobody that could guard him. He averaged 30 in the playoffs for a championship run. So if we're going to have a championship chance, Kawhi Leonard, he has to be unguardable. It doesn't matter what great defender you put on him. You need to put two defenders on him or you're screwed. That's what it's supposed to be. So Kawhi, I still have full confidence against the Pelicans. He can be the best player in the series, even against the likes of Herb Jones. But if you go by the regular season, they're a terrible matchup for us. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. But the saving grace is they haven't had much playoff experience. All they had was that 2022 series against the Suns, and they were competitive in that. That was kind of Alvarado, Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, like their coming out party to the national audience. Herb Jones as well. So it'll be interesting to see. The one thing about them is their other guys have shot a lot better from three this year. Herb Jones, Alvarado, Nance. They're 6th in three-point percentage, but bottom 7 in attempts, and I think that's because they take the right shots. But here's the thing about the Pels. Brandon Ingram is still injured, and there's only 8 games left. So if he comes back in these next couple of games, he's only got about 5 or 6 games before you're ramping up to playing high-level competition. And let me tell you this. If Brandon Ingram is not healthy, they're not winning a series against anyone. So there are some pros and some cons, but coming up, going to be talking about the team that just took the 5th seed and the whole rest of the world wants us to play. Going to be talking about the Dallas Mavericks coming up. This episode, or this next segment, is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. I think the Clippers are locked into the 4th seed. People are saying we have a tough schedule. I think that some of those teams are really overrated and will probably be resting some guys. And I think the gap is too wide. But we shall see. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, so now it's time to talk about the dreaded Dallas Mavericks. Now, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and in Clippers circles saying, bring on the Mavs. We don't want to play the Pels, but we own the Mavs. We've beaten them twice. There's this whole narrative about Luka owns Kawhi and not Kawhi. Luka owns the Clippers and all this, but I've always said, who's undefeated against who in the playoffs? Do you guys value individual stats, or do you value the actual goal of the game? Because the actual goal of the game is you play to win the game. But in today's NBA, these new fans, especially the fanboy weirdos, they just care about their favorite player. Like, they don't give a damn about the outcome of the game. They're just like, oh, my player got off. You couldn't guard him. It's like, do you know that some coaches, when they see that a player has less help, they let that one guy do everything, so then they get burned out? Because the thing about players without great supporting casts is if you actually let their supporting cast cook, then you're in trouble, which is exactly what was happening to us in the 2021 series in the first 2 games when Maxi Kleba and Tim Hardaway Jr. and all these guys were making shots left and right. They cooled down, and the law of averages worked itself out, and Luka was getting gassed by his ball-dominant, heliocentric ball towards the end of games. And, by the way, like, they had Kristaps Porzingis on that team, and they just never gave him the ball, and he wasn't aggressive when he got the ball. So I'm not going to fully blame Luka on that, but they underutilized Porzingis, as we know now. But, of course, Porzingis' role is very different. Point is this. This Dallas Maverick team is not the same. You can say the same about the Clippers, though. We don't have Reggie and Marcus Morris and Pat Bev anymore, and Nico. Or, yeah, I'm not forgetting anyone really. Here's the thing about Dallas. Dallas does not have, like, if you look at the schemes and you look at the actual personnel, New Orleans has better personnel for us. Like, they just have better guys to guard our best players. Who does Dallas have to guard our best players? P.J. Washington and Derrick Jones Jr.? And then Kyrie Irving is guarding James Harden? I mean, I know Kyrie's been playing better defense this year. I know that Derrick Jones Jr. is no slouch. But I saw what Kawhi did to Derrick Jones Jr. last time he went to Dallas. He can't guard him. He's too strong. Kawhi is too strong for him. P.J. Washington, we haven't played the Mavericks with him. In Charlotte, I saw no semblance of a good defender, but I've heard that he has been defending well. And body type-wise, those are the kind of guys that you put on Kawhi. But if Kawhi is getting contained by P.J. Washington, then we deserve to go home. Here's the thing about Dallas. They are the hottest team in the NBA right now. They've won 7 games in a row. They're 34-18 this season with Kyrie Irving. They're 11-11 without him. So that's a major difference. You're 16 games over 500 with Kyrie, and you're 500 with him in a solid sample size. And the reason that is because they don't have that much depth. They have improved their... Actually, you know what? I rephrased that. Before the trade deadline, they didn't have much depth. They don't have anything close to a third star. Their third scorer is Tim Hardaway Jr., who comes off the bench and is no better than Norman Powell. So they don't have a third star like Harden. They have nobody close to that. But they do have 2 lob threats and solid bigs, and they have, sprinkled the roster around with some quality players, P.J. Washington being one of those guys. And I think that as the years go on, you're going to start to see Dallas put better supporting casts around Luka. But here's the scary part, right? This is the best supporting cast that Luka has ever had. And Kyrie Irving is not pre-Knicks Jalen Brunson. He is not Tim Hardaway Jr. This is an NBA champion. And I know what some people are going to be saying. Kyrie hasn't played well in the playoffs since he's been with LeBron. Well, if there's anybody close to getting the attention that LeBron gets, it's Luka. And Kyrie's having his most functional season in years. Probably since 2018 with Boston before it all went wrong. There has not been any drama. There has not been any controversy. He re-signed and extended with them in the summer. He's actually been playing defense. The fan base and the players seem to like him. This Mavericks team is 16-6 with Daniel Gafford on the team and 11-1 with him starting. They are 6th in offensive rating, which again, that's not a shock with Luka and Kyrie Irving on your team. It's not a shock you're going to be a great offensive team. But here's the rub. They're 20th in defensive rating, which is going to make everyone say they're a bad defensive team. It's nowhere near as bad as New Orleans. Bring it on. It's going to be a battle, but ultimately Kawhi owns them and they've got nothing for him. And we have a third star, and they're going to have Kyrie probably guarding him a lot. All those points are valid. But here's what people don't get. In the playoffs, it often comes down to star power. All this stuff I'm talking about, it's relevant, but the Pelicans, if we play the Pelicans, it'll be the truest test of how different is regular season basketball versus playoff basketball. Because in the regular season, we get owned. If we beat them in the playoffs, that just tells you you can never take anything from regular season matchups. You can take some things, because it's not like we can get a new power forward that can guard Zion, but it's just such a different game in the playoffs when you're really scheming for one team over and over. And a lot of times, the best player wins. If the supporting casts are equal, the best player will win. And I think each team has their big 3. They got CJ, Ingram, and Zion, and we have Harden, Paul, and Kawhi. The rest of their team is better than ours, I think. But we have the best player. And I would like to think that Paul George is still better than Brandon Ingram. And I would like to think that Harden's better than McCollum. Any Pelicans fans might disagree, but I think we got the 3 best, each one. I think we got 3 of the best 5 players in the series. Against Dallas, we might not even have the best anymore. I don't care what any Mavericks fan says about those 2 series we played them in the past. We had the best player. He just didn't have to do as much. But he's guarding your best player, and your best player can't even think about guarding us. We're actually attacking his ass. But this is a different Luka. This is a Luka that's come off a conference finals run. This is a Luka that missed the play-in last year and was ridiculed for it. He is playing at an MVP level. He's leading the NBA in scoring. He has a vendetta against the Clippers, and now he's going to have Kyrie. So Defensively, it's going to be a nightmare. We can't just switch Zubats onto Luka. We can't switch certain guys onto Luka like we did the first 2 games of 2021. If we do that, we will be going home this time. I promise you we won't be so fortunate. So it has to come down to our offense being great against them. But here's the scariest thing. The Mavericks are the 3rd best net rating in the NBA in the clutch. And that's no coincidence because they have 2 of the best closers in the league now. And you saw Luka get super gassed last year at the end of games at times. Now he has Kyrie Irving, who's hitting left-handed floaters for game. They make me very nervous. All the people that are discounting Kyrie Irving because of his recent playoff struggles are very foolish to just think that he's going to do that again. This is an NBA champion we're talking about with a lot to prove. Don't think that he doesn't hear the whole "you've not done anything since LeBron." He doesn't buy into that stuff and play into that stuff, but I promise you he knows, and he's thinking about it. Here's the scariest part about Dallas. Since February, essentially since they made the trade for Washington and Gafford, they've been the 8th best defense in the league and the 2nd best offense. You want to talk about peaking at the right time. The Mavericks fans are not afraid of us anymore. Here's the dilemma. Basketball scheme-wise, the New Orleans Pelicans look like the tougher matchup. They have the guy that we just size-wise don't have a body for. They have a better defense, and they have more guys to throw at 2-on-3. They've been much better than the Mavericks against us in the regular season. But they don't have the same playoff experience. They don't have a guy nearly to Luka's level. And Brandon Ingram's injured. For the Mavericks, their defense, while it might be great lately, I'm still not sold on it. I'm still not sold on those guys I named locking down or containing our best players. And we've done better against them. And I want to say we have a psychological edge on them, but I don't think we do. I think legitimately we just beat a team that was worse than us. I really do. And it took Kawhi Leonard having the best game he's ever had as a Clipper to do it on the road and not only just win the series, forced a Game 7 that we still had to go back and win that I was at, and it was amazing. But coming up, I am going to give my verdict of who I want to play, and we're going to be looking ahead at the Kings game on Wednesday and talking about, can we play another team besides those two? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about game time. You know, one time I was very frustrated at my mom because she came home and was like, let's go to the Clipper game. And literally, the game was starting in like 45 minutes. And it takes me like an hour plus to get to downtown. So I was like, I hate starting games late. I don't want to go. We're going to just be in the nosebleeds. And we got ripped off by some scalper for like $90 each for each ticket in the nosebleeds for Lob City against a weak Rockets team. And we paid over $90 for a regular season game. But if there was the Game Time app, that would never have happened. Because Game Time is the best place to save you money on last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Those are known as zone deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, so that's 2 N's back to back, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so here we go. Clippers and Sacramento Kings on Tuesday night. It will be our chance to get 4 straight wins, and we have some news to report this morning. Kawhi Leonard will miss his 7th game of the season with knee soreness. Now, my first thought is load management, third time this season. Nope, I don't mind it. You know, we're basically locked into that 4 seed. We got Denver coming up on Thursday. Let's just make sure Kawhi's healthy at this point because he's going to play 70 games. As long as he plays 2 more games this season, he's going to play 70. So that's all good. But then we heard that he got sent back home. He's back here now for treatment. And anybody that's just resting or load managing on a road trip does not go back home for treatment. So Ty Lue said it happened last game. Kawhi Leonard is very interesting because he's the first player I've ever seen in my life where he gets injured apparently and we just don't know it. We don't see the play. We don't see anything. We don't see any discomfort. The guy closed out the game really well for the third straight game. I don't know. I would say I hope it's just load management, but I don't because we're in no position to be flirting with losing that 4 seed. We should try to seal it as quick as possible and then load manage like they used to before that term was even coined, which is when you are set for your seed, you rest before the playoffs when the business is done. That's the original load management. But then about 7 years ago, we saw LeBron start doing it in the middle of the season. And then after they coined the term for Kawhi in 2019, it's taken over the league. Donovan Mitchell, as I speak, is being load managed on Tuesday night with just coming back from his injury. So I'm hoping it's not load management. It doesn't sound like it is, which honestly concerns me a bit. But my gut, the way this season has gone, I think he'll be fine. And I'm still knocking, but oh boy, I'm still knocking all right, but man, we're so close. Like if something happens now, I don't even know what to say. Like God just doesn't want us to succeed with this team. I would say God just doesn't want us to succeed, the basketball gods, with the Clippers in general, but nah, sometimes things go well. But yeah, Kawhi, I really hope you're okay. Get well soon if need, if it's really serious, get well soon. If it's not very serious, still get well soon. It's going to be the Paul George and James Harden show against the Kings on Tuesday night. They're obviously going to be without Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk. We'll see how it goes. They're clinging on to dear life for the play-in, so it's going to be hard. And here's the thing. If we lose this game, that will be our 28th loss of the season. The Dallas Mavericks are playing the Golden State Warriors in Golden State on TNT on Tuesday night. I really hope the Warriors win so that even if, I really hope the Warriors win because if the Mavericks do win, they're only one game behind us in the loss column. And if we lose home court advantage at this point, that would be a disaster. And that's why I don't think that it's load management because I really believe, Kawhi's only load managed 2 games this year. Golden State on the road and Milwaukee, and we lost 1. So we've only lost 1 game due to load management this year, whereas last year we lost at least 5. At least 5. So I think it's going to be okay, Clipper Nation. But let's see how this game goes without Kawhi. It'll be a good test to see if we can throw Zubac the ball down low more and see if James Harden's got any offensive juice left because he needs to show something. He needs to. And Sacramento doesn't have the best defense. If they put Keegan Murray on Paul George, they're going to have that Keon Ellis guy guarding Harden. We'll see how that goes. But I know you're wondering, you totally forgot which matchup do you prefer, bro? No, I'll just kind of, I wanted you to stay till the end. So the moment of truth, who would I rather play in the playoffs? I don't think there's any wrong answer to this. I really don't. But I'd rather play New Orleans. And here's why. If we lose to the Pelicans, that would be a disaster. I understand what Clipper fans are thinking. Well, we saw the writing on the wall. We got crushed all season by them. Truth. But everyone else, they don't know about that. And when the series begins, it's 0-0. And we have Kawhi and 3 stars in a win-now situation, and the Pelicans are building for the near future. If we lose to a team where their best player, Zion, which, I think it's debatable with Ingram, but Zion is, when he's on, he's unstoppable. So he's their best, right? He's the face of the franchise. When Zion is on, even so, we have the best player in the series. Their best player has not played a playoff game in his entire career. Luka Doncic, people are saying he's the second best player in the NBA after Jokic. So, willingly playing a guy who took us to 7 games with no co-star, and now you give him a co-star, 2 lob threats, and some solid players around him for the first time? I don't know if that's a guy I want to see. It's about star power in the playoffs. All this team stuff, that's cool. It's all about the dudes in the playoffs. I really believe so. And Kawhi kills Dallas, but I'm very nervous playing Luka and Kyrie because if we lose to them, not only are we still going to get clowned, but people are going to say, though, it's Luka, there was a chance Clippers could lose. People are going to go, if we play the Pelicans, the neutral fans going to say, I got the Clippers in 6 or 7. If we play the Mavs, you're going to see a lot of divided opinion on who wins that series, especially with the form that they're in. That's the thing, too. They're playing good basketball right now. And we've never played them with Gafford and P.J. Washington. Here's the biggest reason, though, why I'm okay with playing New Orleans. Despite the fact they have good guys to throw at ours, if Brandon Ingram is not healthy, it doesn't matter. They won't have the offense. And their clutch time offense is very questionable sometimes. It becomes a lot of ISO for Ingram and CJ. Zion's lack of a jumper hurting him. And I've seen it before. Whereas Luka, if he's got the ball with game on the line, we've already been burned in a playoff game by that. And Kyrie Irving, I would take Kyrie Irving over any closer that the Pelicans have. Both teams are fairly deep. I think that the Mavs, it scares me because can we beat this guy 3 times in a row? I don't know if we can. And that would be just a terrible loss. If we lost at Dallas, it's like, where do we go from here? And it puts a lot of pressure. It puts a lot of pressure on Harden to be good because he's going to have the easier matchup. Derrick Jones and PJ Washington, those guys are going to be guarding Kawhi and Paul. Kyrie Irving likely will be starting on Harden. So we'll see how that goes. But I want to get into more of like the schematic stuff with Dallas. Like, how do we guard Luka's pick and roll? Like, what should we do? All this. But we don't have time for that in this episode, and there's no point of talking about that really right now until we get them clinched. But that's my answer. Please let me know in the comment section, though, what you think. Pelicans or Mavs? I think playoff basketball is a different game. And it's funny, Pelicans do play faster than us, but the Mavs actually are higher in pace. They've been playing the fastest pace I've seen in the Luka era this year. I noticed that from the first game when we got killed, right when we got Harden. But the game will slow down in the playoffs. And we do have a guy who kills the Mavs. But yeah, Dallas, I don't know. It makes me nervous. They're playing really good ball. And the thing about Ingram is, how many games is he going to get to regain his form? Remember when LeBron in 2021 was injured and he came back with only 8 games left? And actually it was less. It was like 5 games left. He never really looked the same. Lakers got bounced in the first round. The series last year, LeBron was played the last 8 games, but he was injured. He had that foot injury. He did regain some form, though, and plus LeBron is like a specimen, but he didn't score 30 points in a playoff game until Game 6 against the Warriors. So he didn't score 30-plus points until his 12th game, and he could get away with that because that Memphis Grizzlies team didn't have Steven Adams, they didn't have Brandon Clark, and Anthony Davis and LeBron was just more star power than that, and Reeves and D'Lo really stepped up to the plate. But the Pelicans, they won't be in that situation where they play a team that they're favored against like that. If they play the Clippers first round, you better have Brandon Ingram and playing at his best, or else you're in trouble. Remember, we were in a similar situation in 2016 when Blake Griffin was having those quad issues after he punched a trainer, and then he comes back with, I think, 5 games left and was on a minutes restriction the entire time, and then we started playing him against Portland, and he got injured in Game 5. So I think I would rather take my chances with a not fully healthy Ingram yet than Luka. I mean, just willingly wanting to play Luka, especially when he's got help now, it's very dangerous to me. But that's my opinion. I'd rather play New Orleans. But either way, it's going to be a dogfight. Now, in terms of other teams, I mean, the Suns are 2 games back of Dallas in the loss column. I would love to play. I'd rather play Phoenix than both of those teams, to be honest, because Beal, that health has been all over the place. Their centers are terrible. Their point of attack defense is a little weak. And then Sacramento would be the ideal, but they're not going to have Malik Monk or Kevin Huerter, so I doubt they're going to move up. But let me know what you think of the episode, guys. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more content. I will be live on Tuesday night, directly following the conclusion of the Kings-Clipper game. And, of course, Locked On Clippers. You already know what to do. Hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.